I'm Jennifer Purcell, and welcome to my podcast, Living with an Invisible Learning Challenge, where we will discuss, discover, and learn more about the challenges and triumphs of those with NLD and other learning challenges. I do have a website for this podcast, and it is called livingwithnld.com. I also have a Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter account for the podcast. They are all under the same name, which is Living with NLD. I also have a YouTube channel for the podcast, which can be found by Googling the title of the podcast, which is Living with an Invisible Learning Challenge. I would like to tell you about a nonprofit that I use for my research for this podcast. It is called the NVLD Project, and I use their blog for my research. They are a nonprofit that is based in New York and is trying to get NVLD back on the DSM, and they provide many resources for people with NVLD on their website. I'll provide you with the website for them in the podcast description. All proceeds from the ads on this podcast will be donated towards the NVLD project. Please feel free to explore the other topics on the podcast, and hopefully you will learn something new from them. I hope you enjoy today's episodes. And today I am very excited to announce that BetterHelp is now sponsoring this podcast. I have had 7 years of therapy, so I know it can help change your life if you not only let it, but work on the personal goals that you set with your therapist. Without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is therapy works. But what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships at work, not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles and start feeling better because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. Join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are the greatest asset. And special offering to listeners of Living with an Invisible Learning Challenge. You can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/ I'll put in the link in the podcast description for you. That's BetterHelp, HELEP. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast. I would also like to make an announcement that I have created another podcast. I know I have two now. This podcast is going to be similar to this one, as in it's related to NLD, but it's really meant more for relaxing and meditating and trying to fall asleep. If you are auditory sensitive or have chronic migraines like I do, I have both, and it will have nice natural sounds for you, and the name of the podcast is Sleepy Butterfly. You can find it on Spotify, and you will soon be able to find it everywhere else this podcast is. I just launched it a couple days ago, so it's taking a while for it to distribute. But I even have a website up and running for it. So I will give you the link to the first episode, and I hope you enjoy it, and let me know if you think I need to make any changes. I'm always open to feedback. Thank you. Good morning. So today's episode will be about NLD and communication. Have you ever had challenges with communicating with NVLDers or neurotypicals or trying to get your point across or find the words to express yourself? For me, I've experienced all of these challenges. Sometimes it's hard for me to communicate because of not being able to not being able to read social cues well, know how to respond in the context correctly, and not make weird comments. Or, like I was going to say, find the right words to express my feelings and be able to say something. I have done some episodes about social situations. Those episodes are number 4 of year 1, 21 of year 1, 43 of year 1, 13 of year 2, and 15 of year 2. Here's an article titled "What is NVLD" by Carolyn Miller. Quote, most kids with nonverbal learning disorders have trouble reading emotion and facial cues and body language, so they often don't know what's going on in social interactions. They miss the social patterns that other kids pick up automatically, so they don't know what's appropriate behavior in a given situation. Difficulties with social communication is one reason why kids with NLD often focus, sometimes obsessively, on technology. In chat rooms or in a video game, they don't have to deal with all the nonverbal stuff. End quote. This article has a good way of describing communication challenges for NVLDers. I can relate to it because I do have the issues that are named, but I've worked on them, so I'm not as challenged by them as I used to be. A second article titled "The Paradox of NLD" from NLD Line. Quote, because communication is about 2/3 nonverbal and 1/3 verbal, the inability to understand nonverbal information can cause profound difficulties. In particular, 3 areas are commonly impaired in people with NLD. End quote. This article states a fact that is very important because most people don't have to think about it, but NVLDers do. I do feel for NVLDers who have challenges with finding words to express their needs, themselves, and emotions because sometimes I have those challenges too. It can also be a little annoying when that happens because sometimes it's like pulling teeth for you if you're on the receiving end of trying to help someone communicate what they need or want. At least for me, it is, because then it's harder for me to know how to help that person out. Here's an article from the NVLD project titled "The Difficulty of Misunderstanding People at Times" by Eileen, who loves all the personal connections that she is blessed to have. Quote, I also learned my resource room teacher communicated with her ahead of time about how hard I work, which explains why she connected with me right away. Most importantly, I learned that hard work leads to both personal and academic success. And I hope today's youth with NVLD or any learning disability understand this, end quote. This article does a good job of demonstrating when a neurotypical advocates for an NVLDer by helping them communicate how hard they worked on achieving a goal. As I wrap up today, please remember that not only do neurotypicals have challenges with communication, but so do NVLDers and people with other learning challenges like autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyscalculia, dysgraphia, ADP, just to name a few. Please answer this question. How do you find it challenging to communicate what you need or what you want at times? You can answer on Spotify, YouTube, Living with NLD, or email me at livingwithnld@gmail.com. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and learned something new today. Talk to you next Friday. As I wrap up, there are some things I would like to share with you. I do have a website for this podcast. It is called livingwithnld.com. I also have a Facebook and Instagram page for this podcast. It is called Living with NLD. I will include the links for those in the description. In conclusion, I would like to hear from my audience. If you know individuals with NLD that I could interview for this podcast, please email me at livingwithnld@gmail.com. What are you interested in learning about NLD? I know I'm not an expert, but I do know I have the living experience of having it. I would like you to practice journaling about your gifts and differences. Also see if there is a way that you can make that difference become easier for you to do than it originally was. Thank you for listening today, and please go to my YouTube channel and subscribe to it. Thank you. Bye.